bakery smelled of burnt sugar, vanilla, and exhaustion. Haley Monroe's fingers were raw, her apron dusted with flour and the faint remnants of a failed morning. The small bell above the door jingled again, but no customer came. She leaned against the counter, staring out at the quiet street. Dust motes drifted lazily in the morning sun, settling on the cracked tiles that had seen better days. Her phone buzzed, vibrating sharply against the wood. Haley picked it up reluctantly. "What is it now?" she asked, bracing herself for the demand she already knew was coming. "Shh, Haley." Hannah's voice was brisk, almost impatient. "There's a date tonight. Very exclusive." Haley's eyebrows shot up. "A date with who?" "Nathan Prescott," Hannah said, as if she expected the name alone to elicit some reaction. "Sahib of Prescott Ventures, billionaire, widower, and he has a daughter." "But I can't make it. I need you to go instead." "No, absolutely not," Haley said sharply. "You want me to pretend to be you?" "That's ridiculous." "Just sit there, smile. Don't say anything stupid," Hannah insisted. "He probably won't even notice." Haley's chest tightened. "Kid?" "Yeah, he has a daughter." "But you won't need to worry. Just be presentable." Haley shook her head. "I bake cakes, Hannah." "I don't go on fake dates with billionaires." "You owe me," Hannah said, her voice dropping lower, colder. "I gave up college for you after Dad left." "That's not true. Don't care." "One date isn't too much to ask," Hannah snapped, ending the call before Haley could argue further. Haley stared at the phone, the quiet bakery amplifying the weight of her decision. Rent was due in 3 days. Flour, sugar, eggs, they all had to be bought. Maybe she did owe something. Reluctantly, she whispered, "Fine, but I'm not lying. If he asks, I tell the truth." The restaurant was sleek, bathed in gold light that made Haley feel painfully out of place. She tugged at the only dress she had that could pass for formal, a soft navy blue wrap with crooked buttons, and smoothed down her hair, sprinkled with flour from a rushed morning. Then she saw them. Nathan Prescott strode in with the quiet confidence of a man used to power, dark charcoal suit impeccable. But it was not him who made Haley's chest tighten. It was the little girl holding his hand. Curly hair, wide brown eyes, and a quiet, guarded curiosity that made Haley's stomach ache. Nathan approached, scanning the room, and then his gaze landed on her. "Mr. Prescott?" Haley asked nervously. "Yes, I believe I'm here for the dinner," he said, voice calm, eyes assessing. Haley swallowed. "I should tell you something. I'm not the girl you were supposed to meet." There was a long pause. Then he smiled, a small, soft smile that reached his eyes. "Then I guess I met the right one," he replied. Dinner was awkward at first. Haley fumbled with silverware, glancing nervously between Nathan and his daughter, Ellie. The girl barely spoke, hands folded neatly in her lap. Haley offered a small grape, teasing lightly, and Ellie's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. Slowly, the tension eased. Haley poured juice, wiped spills, and coaxed Ellie into small gestures. A tiny nod, a whispered "thank you." Nathan observed quietly, eyes flicking between his daughter and Haley, watching something unspoken bloom. By the time they walked across the street to the small park, autumn leaves crunching underfoot, Haley felt a warmth she hadn't expected. Ellie held her hand firmly, the child's trust slipping past caution. Nathan's eyes softened as he watched. "You usually don't bring her to these things," Haley murmured. "Not unless necessary," he said simply. But today was different. Back at the bakery days later, Nathan found a small drawing in Ellie's backpack. 3 stick figures, crayon smeared, with Haley's name carefully written below the figure in a navy dress. He stared at it quiet, the paper trembling slightly in his hand. Then came the flowers, the note, and the visits. Haley found herself smiling more, baking more, feeling that gentle connection build in moments of flour-dusted hands and small laughter. Nathan shared more of himself, his grief, his careful attempts to be present. Ellie began to emerge from her silence, giggling over cinnamon rolls, exploring the kitchen, trusting Haley in a way she hadn't trusted anyone in years. The bakery became a haven, a stage for quiet bonding. Haley's heart softened in ways she hadn't known possible, the ordinary rising to extraordinary through shared moments, whispered stories, and sticky fingers coated in sugar. The days after that first dinner passed in a quiet rhythm that Haley hadn't expected. The bakery smelled of sugar, vanilla, and possibility. Ellie began to open up in subtle ways. Soft giggles over spilled flour, tiny hands tracing frosting swirls, and shy smiles that reached her eyes. Nathan watched it all from a distance, careful not to intrude, yet drawn to the gentle bond forming in his daughter's eyes. Haley began to arrive at Nathan's house a few evenings a week. Not as a babysitter, not as a date, but as a friend. Someone who existed in a space between familiarity and cautious intimacy. The little moments, the way Ellie would tug Haley into the kitchen, wanting to help with cinnamon rolls, the quiet way she'd copy Haley's gestures, were small miracles. Haley never thought she could be seen this way. Not by a child, and certainly not by a man like Nathan. Nathan's home was large, tidy, almost intimidating in its quiet elegance. Yet in the presence of Haley and Ellie, it transformed. Toys scattered across polished floors, a little apron draped over the back of a chair, flour dusted on counters from a baking session that had left everyone laughing and sticky. Nathan found himself drawn into their little chaos, a smile tugging at his lips as he reached for the wrong measuring cup or over whipped cream that splashed across the counter. One rainy afternoon, Nathan brought Ellie to the bakery after closing. The smell of freshly baked cinnamon rolls mingled with the scent of rain on the sidewalk. "She's been asking if she can help," Nathan said, shrugging off his coat, sleeves rolled up. Haley felt her heart tighten as Ellie's wide eyes lit up at the sight of flour and mixing bowls. Together they worked on a batch of sticky, sweet cinnamon rolls, laughter filling the small kitchen. Nathan leaned against the counter, watching. He never intervened, never corrected, only observed. He saw Haley in her element, patient, gentle, radiant. And for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. He watched Ellie giggle at a dollop of frosting on her nose, watched Haley lean in to wipe it off, and felt something shift inside him. The walls he had built around his heart began to crumble in tiny, almost imperceptible ways. Weeks passed. The connection between Haley, Nathan, and Ellie grew. There were no grand declarations, no dramatic gestures, only quiet, patient building of trust. Ellie would hand Haley drawings she had made of their little trio, stick figures with crayon hair and wide smiles, and Nathan would smile, silently grateful. The family they were forming was delicate, fragile, but real. But life rarely allowed such delicate moments to remain untouched. One morning, as Haley flipped the open sign on the bakery door, a familiar presence loomed. Hannah. Her designer coat and perfectly manicured hands made her look out of place in the warm, humble bakery. Her heels clicked sharply against the cracked tile floor, echoing like judgment. "Still smells like burnt sugar and desperation," Hannah sneered, scanning the space as though she owned it. Haley straightened, brushing flour from her apron. "What do you want?" "Oh, just checking in," Hannah said, mock sweetness in her voice. "You've been visible lately." Her eyes darted toward a corner where Ellie's drawings were displayed, then to the counter where a small cake had cooled. "You do realize he was my setup, right?" Haley's stomach tightened. "I didn't steal anyone," she said evenly. "You think this is happiness?" Hannah's voice rose. "Baking for crumbs while playing pretend mommy? That's what you call success." Haley's jaw clenched, but she did not flinch. "I didn't plan any of this. I didn't scheme. I was just there, and maybe for once I was seen." Hannah's expression twisted. "You were always meant to be the side character. Stay in the background where you belong." She left, the door slamming shut behind her. The sound echoed in Haley's chest. That night, the bakery was silent save for the hum of the old refrigerator and the faint crackle of the cooling oven. Haley sat behind the counter, staring at a small glass vase where Ellie had once placed a daisy. The petals had dried, curling inward like tiny whispers of what had been. Next to it, taped to the wall, was a drawing from Ellie, Haley, Nathan, and the little girl baking together. Hannah's words echoed. "You were always meant to be the side character." The doubt settled over Haley like a heavy cloak. Maybe she didn't belong here. Maybe she was fooling herself. Nathan belonged to a world of wealth and influence, and she was just a girl from a bakery with flower-streaked hair and borrowed dreams. She had to choose. She had to step back. She sent Nathan a message the next morning. "I need to focus on the bakery for the holidays. Things are getting busy." "Thank you for everything," Nathan replied simply. "Understood. Take care." A week passed. The bakery was quieter than ever. No flowers, no notes, no visits. Ellie stopped asking to go to the bakery. She became small again, withdrawn. quiet in a way that made Haley's chest ache. She hadn't left because of anger or tantrum. Ellie had left because she missed the person who had brought warmth and laughter into her life. Nathan felt it too. It started with small signs. Ellie refusing her favorite breakfast, skipping bedtime stories, ignoring the things that had once made her eyes light up. One night he found her curled on the couch, clutching the pink apron Haley had tied around her. She whispered, "I just wanted to hold it." Days later, Haley stayed late at the bakery, trying to lose herself in work, but her heart wasn't in it. Every sound, the ticking clock, the fridge humming, the quiet streets outside felt amplified, as if the world itself mourned the absence of what had been. Nathan, too, sat in his office, staring at the blank wall where Ellie's drawings used to hang. He found a folded, taped-together sketch buried in the back of her desk. A careful restoration of the drawing Haley had once cherished, a child's determination to mend what had been broken. His chest tightened. She missed Haley, so did he, but no one spoke it aloud. The bakery smelled of sugar and cinnamon as Haley moved quietly between the counters. Outside, winter had settled in, painting frost on the edges of the glass windows. She had poured herself into the work, kneading dough, arranging pastries, and letting the familiar rhythm of baking soothe the ache in her chest. But the ache persisted, subtle and insistent, like a quiet reminder that absence could be louder than presence. She glanced at the empty table by the window, the spot where Ellie had once carefully placed her tiny drawings. The laughter, the small hands reaching for a whisk, the sticky fingers, everything she had cherished felt like a ghost. Haley shook her head, trying to focus on the orders piling up for the holiday rush. Flour clung to her sleeves and hair, and she realized she hadn't smiled freely in days. Meanwhile, across town, Nathan sat at his massive mahogany desk, the hum of the city filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. He tapped absent-mindedly on the pen in his hand, staring at a blank notepad. His gaze drifted to the framed drawing of 3 stick figures, the man, the little girl, and the woman who had brought light into both their lives. He leaned back, letting out a deep breath. The house felt too quiet. Ellie didn't ask for stories before bed anymore. She didn't request a trip to the bakery. She didn't giggle when flour dusted the counter, or when frosting landed on her fingers. The warmth that had slowly crept into their lives had retreated, leaving a hollow ache. Nathan's heart tightened with the weight of his own absence, and for the first time in years, he realized he had let someone essential slip through his fingers. That evening, as snow began to drift lightly against the window panes, Nathan decided he couldn't let this silence linger. He called Ellie into the living room, his tone gentle. "Ellie, do you miss her?" The little girl's small frame stiffened. She clutched her stuffed rabbit and looked down at her lap. Nathan sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You can tell me," he whispered. Ellie's voice was barely audible. I just want her back." Tears welled in her wide brown eyes, and she pressed the pink apron, Haley's apron, against her cheek. Nathan's chest constricted. He nodded, his decision crystal clear. Tomorrow he would go to the bakery. Not for himself, not for appearances, but for the little girl who had finally found her voice, and for the woman who had mended both of their hearts with nothing more than warmth, patience, and presence. The next morning, Haley was in the bakery early, preparing dough for a batch of cinnamon rolls. The bell above the door jingled softly. She looked up, expecting the usual delivery, but froze. Nathan stood there holding a small folded drawing in his hand. The lines were simple, imperfect, 3 figures in crayon smiling, surrounded by the chaos of a tiny kitchen. Haley's heart skipped a beat. He walked slowly to the counter, placing the drawing between them. He didn't speak at first, his eyes scanning her face, searching for a flicker of recognition. Haley reached out, trembling fingers grazing the paper. "You kept this?" she whispered. Nathan's voice was soft, measured. "Ellie fixed it. She folded it when you stopped coming. I found it in her drawer." Haley's eyes filled, the warmth returning to her chest. She wanted to repair what was broken," she murmured. Nathan nodded. And I realized we need you, Haley. She needs you. I need you. Ellie burst into the bakery then, her small figure racing across the floor. Haley, she cried, arms outstretched. Haley dropped the dough she had been kneading, rushing to scoop her into a hug. The little girl clung to her, her laughter bubbling freely, the sound Haley had missed more than she had admitted to herself. Nathan watched, a quiet smile spreading across his face as he saw them reconnect. Days blurred into weeks as the trio rebuilt their fragile rhythm. Haley returned fully to their lives, not as a guest or a substitute, but as part of their makeshift family. The bakery became a hub of laughter and small adventures. Ellie's giggles echoed between the counters as she learned to decorate cupcakes with careful precision, and Nathan, no longer just an observer, joined in. They baked side by side, flour dusting the countertops in their hands alike. One afternoon, Haley noticed a small envelope taped to the back door. She bent down, curiosity prickling her senses. Inside was a receipt from her flour supplier, paid in full, and several large bags of imported pastry flour scheduled to arrive that afternoon. Her hands shook slightly as she dialed Nathan's number. "Did you?" she began, voice catching. "Did I pay for your flour?" Nathan replied evenly. "Yes." Haley's exhale was shaky. "Are you trying to buy my affection?" "No," he said simply. "I'm trying to make sure you don't give up your dream over a few bags of dough." Haley bit her lip, tears prickling. "That's not your responsibility." "Maybe not," Nathan said softly, "but Ellie believes in you, and that's enough for me." The small gestures multiplied, notes, drawings, impromptu baking sessions, laughter-filled evenings. Ellie's wall, once bare, was now adorned with crayon drawings of the three of them baking, playing, laughing, a chaotic collage of a family healing itself. Haley and Nathan's bond deepened quietly, without grand declarations, built on trust, laughter, and moments that spoke louder than words. Then came the evening of Ellie's birthday. The backyard was transformed into a kingdom of pink balloons, paper lanterns, and crooked handwritten banners. Children ran around with frosting-stained fingers while Haley and Nathan watched from nearby. Ellie, in her tiny apron, carried a slightly lopsided cake. "She made this?" Haley asked softly. "With Daddy?" Ellie whispered. Haley smiled, tears threatening. Nathan's hand brushed hers as he stepped closer. As the candles were lit, a hush fell. Haley knelt to Ellie's height, helping her blow them out. Then, as the last flicker of flame disappeared, she heard it, a small, trembling voice. "Mommy." Her heart stopped. Ellie's eyes glistened with hope, reaching out for her. Haley's throat tightened, emotion choking her. "I'm not your mommy, sweet girl," she whispered, voice thick. "But if you need me to be, I will." Nathan knelt beside them, eyes glistening, silently giving his blessing. The moment hung, fragile and perfect. The party faded into the background as the bond between them crystallized. Unspoken but undeniable. Weeks later, after the holiday rush and quiet evenings in the bakery, Nathan brought Ellie and Haley together for one last surprise. A small velvet box nestled in the layers of a cake. Haley's hands trembled as she uncovered the ring. Nathan was already on one knee, eyes bright, holding hers gently. "We both want you to stay," he said softly. "Not for a day, but forever." Tears streamed down Haley's face. She nodded, unable to speak, pulling them both into an embrace that held all the warmth, laughter, and love they had built together. The wedding was small, intimate, held in the very bakery where their story began. Ellie stood proudly in a tiny white dress, holding a bouquet carefully arranged by Haley. Nathan wore a simple suit, tie absent, smile unrelenting. Haley in pale cream lace looked radiant, at home at last. As the ceremony ended, the trio gathered behind the counter for their first cake as a family. Icing landed on noses, flour dusted the air, and laughter rang out unburdened and free. It was imperfect. It was messy. It was theirs. In the quiet of the evening, as they cleaned up, Haley glanced around the bakery. The walls held drawings, the counters bore smudges of frosting, and the air carried the scent of cinnamon and love. She finally felt seen, whole, and at peace. Nathan's hand found hers across the countertop, Ellie's small hand resting on top of theirs. They didn't need to say it. Home wasn't a place, it was them. And so, amid sugar, laughter, and second chances, their lives intertwined fully. A family built not on wealth or appearances, but on patience, kindness, and the courage to embrace love when it appeared unexpectedly. Haley, Nathan, and Ellie had found each other. Imperfect, messy, and real, but theirs.